Ontario's natural splendors are many and diverse, but this summer, our Ontario hubs put the spotlight on some of the wonders that aren't naturally occurring. Here to explain, TVO.org editor Nathaniel Basin from the West End of Toronto. Hey, Nat.
Hi, Jan.
All right, so the messaging this summer has been to vacation locally. That's the message here in this province of Ontario. The government provided grants to travel and tourism businesses to help facilitate that. Now, we're talking about these landmarks. What is the significance of these landmarks besides being these quirky attractions on the side of the road?
Yeah, so obviously TVO.org writers and editors have been sort of crossing the province looking for these large things, 16 in total. And what's great about them is that they're all quite different, right? Some are animals, some are food stuff, some are publicly owned, some are on private businesses, but they all tell a small story about the region or for the people who built it. You know, what we've learned is that all of them at some point had someone who badly wanted them built, and those people tend to have pretty interesting stories.
Now, TVO.org has been running a series of articles about these attractions. It's a great series. It is called the Roadside Attraction Showdown. Great title for that. And of course, our viewers and readers can get an opportunity to vote later this month on their favorite. I know this has spurred some friendly competition amongst the writers and editors. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of the landmarks that are going to be featured?
Yeah, so they're all across the province. Some people have heard of, some they probably haven't. There's the Wawa Goose, there's the Big Nickel in Sudbury, of course, and then there's Husky the Muskie in Kenora, and the Giant Snowman in Beardmore. There's a Mammoth Cheese in Perth, so they really kind of run the gamut.
I understand Nick Dunn is very passionate about the Big Nickel, so I know he's been advocating for that. So let's talk about the ones that you've written about. This is the photo of the giant Muskoka chair in Gravenhurst. This isn't obviously the finished product here, but give us an idea. Obviously, I see two guys here, but how big is this chair?
So the chair is very large. It is more than 20 feet tall. It took 800 feet of cedar and 1,400 square feet of plywood. And you see it there in the warehouse. It had to be built in sections because it couldn't fit all together at the same time.
Very, very impressive. Now, this chair actually has a very interesting story. It actually has to do with, I believe the story starts with a series of tornadoes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so some people might remember that on August 20th, 2009, 19 tornadoes touched down in Ontario. It put 10 million people under a tornado watch. One of those tornadoes ripped through Gravenhurst and tore up a very large but not giant Muskoka chair that belonged to the owner of a local home hardware. When it got destroyed, the owner decided, I'm going to build it back. I want it to be the biggest in the world. And so he did. He called up a person he'd worked with before named Craig Johnson, who was an inmate at Beaver Creek Institution nearby for a string of bank robberies. And he said, can you build me the world's largest chair? And Craig said, absolutely. And so every day between 8 and 4, Craig would leave the institution, go to the warehouse, build the chair, and then go home at 4. Yeah.
So Nat, you talked about Craig Johnson. How proud is he to see his giant Muskoka chair?
Yeah, so I spoke with Craig last week. He's still serving time. He's really proud. He loves the idea of something with his name attached to it that is a good thing, because as he says, when you Google his name, all you really see are negatives. And so I think he's really just happy to have that attached to his name for as long as it lasts.
And I understand that this chair itself originally was outside of a hardware store. It does have a new location as well. So if someone is in the area, where can we find it?
Yeah, it's been moved to the parking lot of Sault Ste Brewery. So you can go and have a beer and sit in the chair.
It's a very, very steep slope. So, enjoy responsibly. Now I want to pull up another photo of another fairly big attraction. This is Big Bruce. How big is this boy here?
Big Bruce is pretty big, 20 feet long, 15 feet tall, and weighs a heck of a lot.
Now, I understand, I'm going to assume Big Bruce, he is in Bruce County, so he was probably named after that. But I understand there's some significance with the farming industry there as well. Tell us about that story.
Yeah, so a man by the name of Harvey Davis, who was a warden of Bruce County in the 1970s, was traveling in the States, probably Wisconsin, but we're not entirely sure, when he came across Big Bruce doing something there. He decided, I need to have this. And so he talked to the person who owned the bull, and they said they'd part with it for $3,000. He came back to Bruce County. He talked to the local Cattlemen's Association and asked them if they'd pay for it. At first, they were a little hesitant, so he said, whatever, I'll buy it. And at that point, the Cattlemen's Association actually caved and bought it. And they used Big Bruce to tour around the province on a golden trailer in advance of the 1976 International Plowing Match. The plowing match is a farming event that brings 100,000 people to the area.
Now, I understand Big Bruce is quite a fan favorite. They've actually introduced, I don't know if 2 cows creates a herd, but I understand that now there's been an addition to Big Bruce. Tell us about that story.
Yeah, well, 2 bulls. Let's make sure we're clear about that.
Yes.
It does make a herd. So Harvey died in 1980, and his son, Mark, ended up becoming the deputy mayor of Aaron Eldersley. For the 2008 International Plowing Match, the council commissioned Little Bruce, who is smaller, just 6 feet tall, but still, large. And then after the Cattle Association and the plowing match, they auctioned it off for just over $5,000, with the proceeds going to local children's hospitals. And Mark, with the prodding of friends and family, decided to buy it. So now Little Bruce lives with Harvey's son.
Now, I got to ask, you've written a few stories about some landmarks, and you've also got a chance to read some of the others. Is there something that you've learned about some of these attractions that you never thought, or some really interesting stories? I know I'm not going to share my favorite just yet, because I know voting hasn't started yet. But anything interesting that's popped up from the other stories?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is just that they've been surprisingly touching. I just didn't think that they would be so sort of such emotional stories, and they all have been. They often tell the stories of just great people who have tried to make the province better, and so that's been really nice. But it's gotten pretty competitive in the team group chat, as you mentioned. So I'm going to keep my intentions and my favorites private.
Now, I want to make sure that we get the voting right. So viewers and readers can vote August 30th on tvo.org on their favorite roadside attraction showdown. I got to ask, since you've seen enough and read about these landmarks, have you seen any of these landmarks in person? And what do you think makes a good roadside attraction? Is there a criteria?
Yes. So these landmarks, I've seen a lot of them in person, but not for purposes of this competition. To me, the best landmarks are, one, they've got to be big, they've got to be huge. That's their whole thing. And the more unique, the better. I like animals. I like the muskie and I like the bull. And then obviously the backstory is a plus.
All right. Well, we will keep a close eye on that. Thank you so much, Nat, for joining us today.
Thank you.
The Agenda in the Summer with Nam Kiwanuka is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.